This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Welcome to the Season 7 finale of Curbcast. My name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is a podcast where we review every episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm scene by scene in chronological order. And Stephen, after so many mishaps over the last few months and issues we've had in our personal lives and a few other things that we had planned as well, it's taken a little while to get to this point. It feels like forever when we started Season 7, Episode 1. It feels actually it was months ago, I was going to say.
I think at this rate we probably started Season 7 of Curb when Seinfeld, the actual show, ended in 1998. It's taken,
it almost sounds
20,
like
what's
it.
That, 24 years.
Exactly. It certainly feels like 24 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, but like I said, lots of issues that came up as we spoke about in earlier episodes, and some planned trips and planned things as well that happened. And so we do apologise for the inconsistency of this season 7 releases of episodes, but we are here and we're recapping Seinfeld, the final episode of season 7 of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and we're going to give a bit of a recap of season 7 overall, what we thought, what our favourite episodes were, and a few other tidbits as well.
So like Ivan said, we're sorry about the inconsistency of season 7. Like you said, we've had just things, life, some personal issues, and I went away for a little while, and work, and just normal everyday life stuff get in the way. But we're committed to doing the podcast, and we do appreciate every time we drop an episode. We're always keen to see how many people listen, and we've noticed our listenership hasn't really dropped off at all. So we do appreciate you sticking with us through a more patchy time. And also, a few people have gotten in touch via email, just saying, "Hey, where are you guys? What's going on? I miss you." So if you're one of them, I believe we read out an email a few episodes ago, and we have gotten one in the meantime. I don't have it in front of me, so I won't be able to read it out. But
I have it in front of me.
Oh, great. Well, do you want to read that one out?
Yeah, for sure. This is from Joe, I believe from America. They didn't say where, but I assume so. Hey, Stephen and Ivan, I've been a huge fan since the Bidwabask days, so our old podcast, but I don't want to be a secondary character. Very niche Seinfeld podcast we used to do back in the day. I recently started listening to your Curbcast pod, and it has been a wonderful experience. I've worked an overnight shift for the last year and a half, and you two have managed to keep me entertained for countless hours. Keep up the great work. Excited for what lies ahead, and regards, Joe. So thank you very much, Joe. That was very nice. We got that about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, nice. Well, that's that's really awesome that we can accompany you on your night shift. I used to work many years ago as a fishmonger. It wasn't night shift, but I used to start at 1 or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. some days. And it can be a lonely existence. So, I understand finding something that gives you a bit of comfort and, makes what can be a pretty tough job a bit easier. So if we're that for you, that means a lot. And thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And thank you, like Stephen said, to everyone else who reached out to us, wishing us well and wondering what was going on, because we were pretty silent on socials for a little bit as well. So, but we promised to be a bit more active on those as well.
Yeah, we've been a bit slack. And just moving forward in, sort of as an extension of what we've been talking about just now. We were recording this on December 5, and this will be the last episode we record for the year. It's the time of year when we slow down and Christmas and go away and all the rest. And rather than trying to release or start season 8 before the end of the year, we decided that we'll take the rest of the year off, and we'll start releasing episodes again for season 8 as January 13. And because we've got a bit of time, we'll be able to bank them up and just pump them out more consistently, like I said, which is what I should have said.
Like what you were about to say.
Consistently.
Yes.
As of January 13, we'll start putting them out weekly for season 8. So, after this episode drops, we'll have another sort of month or so off. And then as of January 13, we'll start fresh with season 8. And we'll be a bit more back. Well, we will be back to, regular weekly releasing rather than the spotty releases that we've done with season 7. So,
Yeah. Our New Year's resolution will be to be more consistent, basically.
Exactly. Our New Year's resolution will be to just do the basic podcast scheduling that most other podcasts manage to do. And we've always managed to do. It's just been a time lately.
Oh, it has been a time for both of us. Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can. We have an email address, curbcastpod@gmail.com. We're on social media as well. Check out what we're on. Our handle is curbcastpod. Those details are in the show notes. you want to support us, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/mishmash media. You can head there and pay as little as $1 a month, and you get access to our episodes a bit earlier than normal, 3, 4, 5 days a bit earlier. So if you want to hear our voices a few days earlier than the rest of the world, then head on over to the Patreon. And if you want to support us in other ways, you can just spread the word. If you've got someone in your life who likes Curb or even Seinfeld, let them know about us, or rate us or review us on your podcast app of choice. 5 stars would be amazing, but whatever you think is fair, any support is appreciated.
Yes, it certainly is. And anyway, buddy, without further ado, let's bring this one home, eh? Season 7, Episode 10 of Curb Your Enthusiasm. We'll be reviewing Seinfeld is the name of it. And this one aired in the US on November 22nd, 2009 on HBO for the very first time. In this finale, taping the Seinfeld reunion proves to be difficult after Larry's fight with our local coffee vendor alienates Jason Alexander and costs him quality time with Cheryl. And speaking of the local coffee vendor, it is Mocha Joe, one of Larry's nemesis on Curb. First appearance from him, and he will return a decade later as a recurring character in season 10.
Yeah, he's one of those characters that I've always been aware of just through like memes and posts and people talking about Curb, but this is the first time he actually appeared.
Yeah, the first time we see him, and it's funny how we don't see him for like a couple more seasons. I don't know. Like I don't know the production behind this, but the actor who played Mocha Joe, I think he's really, really funny. He's great.
I really like him. He's in Becca. He was a really good. I can't remember the character's name, but he was really awesome in Becca, which is a show that I loved.
Oh yeah, Becca. Yeah, he was in that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'll pull up the actor's name. I had the notes.
I haven't seen the show in a long time, so I can't really remember a lot of the names. But he was kind of a bit of a sex pest, and he was constantly harassing the hot secretary, or she was like the receptionist or secretary at Becca's office. Constantly professing his love for her and like asking her out like every episode, and she would always reject him. I think they did go out once, maybe that's going to happen, but ultimately he's a bit of a loser. And but he's really good, and I really like him in everything he's in. Yeah, me too.
The actor is Severio Guerra, and his character in Becca was Bob.
Right,
Bob. Yeah, that was his name.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And of course, Mocha Joe. Yeah, very, very funny. And because for those who may have, stumbled on our podcast and listening to us for the first time, for those who don't know, we're watching these episodes for the first time. So, we had no idea about Mocha Joe, but I really liked him. And it's a shame that we're not going to see him for at least 2 more seasons. Disappointing.
Yeah. Oh, well, something to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure. And a bit of trivia about the episode. Before Larry talks to Mocha Joe, about Jason Alexander's dogs. What's that?
I was going to say, I like how you said Mocha Joe, which is so Australian. So, We have mochas or mochas in Australia, which is chocolate and coffee, but we call them mochas, not mochas.
Oh, I know. It's the Australian coming out of me.
Yeah, or mocha. Instead of give us a mochaccino, mate.
Give us a mochaccino, you dog.
Yeah, give us a mochaccino, you dirty dog.
Anyway, I get too carried away, but anyway, just the trivia about the episode before Larry talks to Mocha Joe. I did it again. Mocha Joe about Jason. Yeah, it's a bit hard for us Aussies. Before Larry talks to Mocha Joe about Jason Alexander's dogs after biting him, the person buying the coffee is Norman Brenner. And you may remember his name. You may have seen it before. He was Michael Richards' stand-in during all 9 seasons of Seinfeld. He's that guy, the tall guy with the grey kind of mane, and grabs his coffee before Larry talks to Mocha Joe about the dogs. There you go.
Yeah, you were about to say Mocha Joe, weren't you?
I was about to. Yeah, I know. I had to restrain myself there.
I sensed the slight hesitation there. You were like, and before he grabs the Mocha Joe.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. Yeah, you got me. I'll get there. Don't worry. The power of editing. If I say Mocha Joe as I'm reading the scenes and we're talking about the episode, then I'll edit it out.
Just record yourself saying Mocha and then just cut and paste that over every time you say Mocha, so it just sounds like the same. It's like Mr. Black. Mocha.
Yeah, Mr. Black. So in this scene, Mocha Joe stumbles across this. I get what you mean. Yeah. I'll do my best. Mocha. I gotta say it the Americanized way, Stephen. Alright, here we go. Let's put our mochas down and let's do this episode, eh? Alright, scene 1 of Seinfeld. Jason and Cheryl are rehearsing their scene on the Monks set, the studio. The director raps for the day. Larry praises the both of them for the rehearsal as Jason walks off. Cheryl isn't confident in her performance as Larry reassures her that everyone likes her, even him. And you can see already the chemistry between Jason Jason and Cheryl in the scene. I love how Jason goes like full George with the check part, where they're trying to fight for the check. He's like, give me the check. He like really yells it. I think even like Cheryl's taken aback in that moment. She's just like, oh geez. Shit, Jason, you went like all out there. Whoa, settle down.
He's really acting without
acting. Yeah, you can read Jason Alexander's pamphlet. No, I mean book. Acting without acting. It's like a pamphlet. Oh, funny. But yeah, no, you can see like in this scene, it's more of a professional. Well, it's always been a professional thing, but of course, Larry misunderstands the whole situation. He's very jealous of Jason. But yeah, you can see they're both getting along really well. Like Cheryl has a few, like she confides in Larry about, is the chemistry right with Jason? Is the scene right? Is everything working? And Larry reassures her that she's fine. Because obviously the reason why he's doing the Seinfeld reunion is to try and win Cheryl over. So he says anything he can to try and please her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, like I said, Cheryl, the only real notable thing in this scene is just Cheryl just has doubts about, how she's doing, and she feels like she's kind of got her head above, trying to struggle to put her head above water, being amongst like, the sitcom elites of the core four, in Seinfeld. I can understand what she means, but Larry reassures her, even genuinely reassures her as well. I feel like Larry, like, even though he kind of says these things to make Cheryl feel better, I think he genuinely means it too. Because obviously he still cares for Cheryl.
Yeah, he's not, he's not just angling to, just like sleep with her. Like his pursuit of Cheryl, to come back into his life is not, although it may be a bit misguided and a bit dubious at times, it's one based on affection and respect. So yeah, his concern is genuine for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But this is the, like I said, the early stages, and there's no inklings from Larry regarding Jason and Cheryl's relationship, so to speak, at the moment. It's very early days. Early in the piece. But how good do those sets look? Even after, like 10 years after the show the show ended and 10 years later they filmed for Curb. I'm amazed they still had the sets. I thought they would have been like in a dumpster or something.
The same. I mean, maybe they had the sets in storage and they just pulled them out, or I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to rebuild them, but they were perfect.
Yeah, I think they were the original sets, weren't they, at NBC?
Right? Yeah, I mean, they'd be pretty silly to destroy those sets.
Yeah, I was going to say, such iconic sets, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the executives at NBC have always been like hoping that Seinfeld want to do a reunion just to make lots of money, so they probably kept the sets just in case that would happen.
At least it's not like the Merv Griffin show where Kramer finds it in the dumpster.
Yeah, I don't think we'd walk behind, a studio in Hollywood and find the Seinfeld set hanging out of a dumpster.
No, I doubt it. Yeah, no, it's good. I really liked how they used the actual like the sets and stuff as well. Really, really cool.
Yeah,
really awesome. And even like the things behind it, like the things behind the scenes, like because when you look at like a set, you think it's like it's shot on location or something, but then you look at say like outside of the camera, outside of the frame, you see like ladders and cables and cameras and stuff just outside of it. Which is really interesting, just to see what it looks like.
If you're going to rebuild a set on a set, you may as well build it as the full set, because it's easier to set it up as it would be in real life than build. Yeah, I mean, and for the sake of the show, because it's Larry and Jerry and all the production crew and all the actors on set, you kind of, they don't really have a choice but to build out the full set as it would have been in real life, behind the camera. So yeah, they kind of have, if they were going to do like fully committing to showing a Seinfeld reunion being filmed and then aired, they kind of had to do the full, what it would look like with the set of the show and then the actual production set around it, like what it looks like around it. So
yeah, it's very well done. Very good. What is it? Not cinematography? Is it cinematography? No, what is it?
I think you just call it production.
Production, yeah. Good set design.
Yeah,
very good set design. Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know the specific category, but yeah, I understand what you mean. Attention to detail.
Attention to detail. Yeah, very well done. Larry and Cheryl are walking outside the studio, and Larry says that Michael's Groat's disease diagnosis was negative. Oh, that was funny last week. Cheryl invites Larry to go to her place to go over lines after Jason's book launch at Julia's house. Larry says that he'd love to come. Larry comments on the tint in Jason's car as they walk past it, and Cheryl says that Jason has tint on his car because he's a big celebrity and he brings his dogs everywhere he goes with him, and he doesn't want people to see him, obviously, because he is a celebrity. So, he keeps his dogs in a tinted car. That's a bit weird, especially in that LA heat. That's almost abuse, isn't it?
Well, Well, I think tinted windows keep the heat out, don't they? I mean, Cheryl even makes mention of that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But I'd imagine Jason probably wouldn't be running the air conditioner as well. He'd probably just, leave the dogs in there. I find that really weird because obviously dogs being in cars in Australia, it's like a big no-no here, you know? It's like something that if you saw like a dog in a car, you'd probably like smash the window to get him out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of dog owners irresponsibly leave their dogs in the car, thinking that it'll be okay. You know, they might crack a window or put a bit of water in there, but it's not enough. And then, unfortunately, a lot of dogs die because of it. You know, they suffocate or die from heat stroke or whatever. Yeah. You know, they can't pant enough to stay cool, and then they die. So I guess it is a bit strange now that you. I didn't think it was weird, but I guess it is a bit strange now that you mentioned.
Yeah. I thought because of the LA heat, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dogs Die in Hot Cars. Good band too.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic.
What's from the 90s?
Their main song? I can't remember. But I don't know. Yeah, great band. Underrated, sort of like a new wave ska band or something.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. They came out, like mid to late 90s?
Yeah.
2000
their main hit was like 2004. Like, and we go on the traffic and children who live far away.
I'll have to find it on YouTube.
Take the bus to Bombay. Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah. Older Aussie listeners will know who they are, but you Americans are like, Dogs Die in Hot Cars. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
It's a terrible
name.
name.
They were a British band.
I thought they were Australian. They're British.
The band that I know called Dogs Die in Hot Cars, they're actually Scottish.
They're Scottish.
Maybe there's an Australian band called Dogs Die in Hot Cars as well. I'm not sure.
No, you're right. They're from St Andrews. Yeah, I've just Googled them. Scotland. I always thought they were Australian for some reason. I don't know. But yes, Dogs Die in Hot Cars. Yeah, there you go.
Their song, God Hopping. It's the first song on their album. I'm looking at the Wikipedia as well.
Sick.
That was a big hit on Triple J. It's like new way. It's like if what's his name? David Byrne. It's like if Talking Heads played ska. You know,
it's like that. Yeah.
It's like weird 80s new wave cross with ska.
That's probably why I thought they were Australian, because they were a big like Triple J band. Maybe, I thought, that's why I had the association. I was like, Dogs Die in Hot Cars, Triple J, you know?
And it sounds like an Australian band. You know, it sounds like it would be a piss take sort of Australian band name as well. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, no. Today I learned that Dogs Die in Hot Cars are Scottish, not Australian, but there you go.
Useless facts from Steve and Ivan at Kirkcast. You know,
that's right.
Stay tuned for more useless information.
That's right. For those who have stuck around after that, yes, stay tuned.
A lot of people are probably going, shut up. Like, I wish I was.
Yeah, just like, get on with it. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, Mocha Joe walks past them and is bringing coffee to the production studio. Larry hands jumper cables to him to return them to Tim Kaiser, one of the producers, while he's there. Joe looks very annoyed because Larry didn't give him a tip for the favour, and he walks off very disappointed with the coffees and the jumper cables in hand.
Yeah,
completely understandable.
What you think is it's understandable that he's annoyed?
Oh well, I guess because he's a guy that works with tips, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he probably expects. Look, I don't know. Look, I think because of Larry's like status and stuff, I think he probably like expected something in return. Whether it's considered right or not, I don't know. But I don't know. Now I just had I went on like a train of thought as I was talking about it. I don't know. Maybe it's not good by Mocha Joe. I don't know. What's your take? I just kind of went on a tangent like thinking about it as I was talking. Yeah. I was like, hang on, that's not right. Why did I say that Mocha Joe's in the right? What did I say, Pat?
It's hard to have a fully, unbiased opinion because tipping is not really as you know, people do tip in Australia, and I would suspect that pretty much all Australians generously tip when they go to America or Europe, places where it's commonly practiced. But it's not really part of our culture. It's more of it's not expected, but it's very much appreciated. Like if you work at a cafe or, at a hotel, like any sort of service job, and someone gives you an extra $10 because you just really went above and beyond, or they just want to be nice or whatever. People, it is done, but it's not an expectation. So I think because of that, for us, the idea of expecting a tip just for doing someone a relatively very small favor is kind of, well, for me personally, is very strange. I'd just be like, well, like Larry says a bit later in the episode, you were going there anyway. It's not like you have to go out of your way. You have to carry one small thing, a couple of 100 meters, and you didn't have to go out of your way. So the idea of expecting a tip for that or getting upset when you don't get a tip, I don't know whether he's being unreasonable or if we just can't get our heads around that because tipping is not commonly practiced here, and if it is, it's usually it's a sort of a one-off thing based on a specific situation rather than just part of a culture.
Yeah, I kind of thought that Mocha Joe was probably thinking that because in the fact he considers himself just as like the coffee guy, whereas Larry's like one of the producers of the reunion.
Right.
So obviously he's been hired by the studio to give coffee or, to sell coffees, whatever it is, to those on set. I figured because Mocha Joe, he kind of understands, look, I'm like the lowly kind of coffee guy. And if I do favors for anyone who is, quote unquote, above me in this studio environment, I do expect some form of compensation because they're kind of good for it.
No, that's true.
That's probably what he's thinking.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. And I guess he is like on the clock. It's not like if he was like Larry's friend and he was just hanging around talking to Larry and Larry said, oh, hey, Joe, can you just take these jumper leads in? And he just did it like off the clock as a friend. I don't think he would expect a tip. But yeah, because I guess even though he didn't do anything, like the jumper leads weren't specific to his job. Like it wasn't coffee related or service related. He was still sort of like on the clock and he was still working at the time. At the time he was supposed to finish. And
that's right. Yeah,
his relationship with Larry, I guess, was professional more than personal. So yeah, now that we've sort of explained it, or now that we've delved into it, I can understand why he would expect a tip, and get a bit upset. But it's still jarring to me because it's just so, it's just not a thing that is part of day-to-day life here in Australia.
No, it's not really part of our culture. No.
Yeah, and I think Larry's got a reasonable point. He kind of makes it later on as well that like when you say, "Hey, do me a favor," or "Can you do me a favor?" all you're saying is like, just go out of your way very slightly to help me out, and and I'll owe you one, or whatever it is. To me that's just like a random act of kindness that doesn't really cost you anything. Like it's like I said, he was going there anyway. Obviously, he gets along. They seem pretty familiar with each other. Obviously, he's like there. They've probably been filming and rehearsing for weeks and, him and Larry seem pretty comfortable with each other. So the idea of like expecting a tip, even if he's on the clock, to me is still like, I can appreciate why he would expect it. But for me personally, it's just a bit odd to me. But that's
it goes against Australian culture and it goes against our values as well. Like not everything needs to be done for money or compensation. You do it out of the goodness of your heart.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like just say we were, I don't know, like if we were at work together, like that's how we met. We used to work in the same office many years ago in Melbourne. If you were going to get a coffee and I couldn't go and get a coffee with you because, I had work to do and I said, hey, Ivan, can you grab me a coffee and I'll pay you back? Or here's $5, can you grab me a coffee as well? Like you wouldn't say, oh, well, okay, well, you can pay for my coffee. Well, you can give me $2 towards my coffee because I'm doing you a favor. You'd be like, yeah, no worries. I'm going there anyway. I'll go. Like it's no skin off your nose.
Yeah, you just hand me jumper cables and go, hey, can you give this back to the barista? My car's good. Then I'd be like, oh, all right, whatever. But I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to give jumper cables back to the barista, Like that's really fun.
Yeah, just think the idea of like just saying, hey, can you like help us out? And it's no inconvenience to you really. It's not something that you would expect to be compensated for. I wouldn't, and I would feel weird if someone put that expectation on me. But like, really, like, technically did me a favor, and that's nice. But like, to expect something out of it, like you said, it's just not part of our culture or something that we even think about, unless you like really went out of your way. Like if you help, say, someone move house, that's totally different. Yeah. Like if I help someone move out, even if it's a good friend, unless I owed them that favor. Like, they helped me move and now I'm just repaying the favor. I would expect on some level, like, here's a slab of beer or here's like, I'll take you out for dinner or like, if you're donating a lot of time and energy and something as shitty as moving house, I would be a bit upset if they didn't like even throw a bit of cash my way or like, take me to the pub and buy me a meal or something to just repay the favor.
Yeah, something,
Grabbing something while you're on your way somewhere, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. It's totally okay because it's literally no skin off my nose.
I feel like this moment was, I feel like Mocha Joe and Larry kind of had a good professional relationship, serving coffees and Larry being a customer and stuff. I feel like this incident was the beginning of the end. I feel like from this point, Mocha Joe was dedicated to be Larry's nemesis because you can see like his attitude is completely different to Larry.
Yeah,
it's like he was like tolerant at first, but now he just downright Larry pretty much like disgusts him almost.
Yeah, he seems very like he's lost any sort of idea of respect for Larry. He thinks a lot less of him for sure. I guess maybe now that I think about it even more, again, like the expectation of him getting a tip is not it's something that's foreign to me. But if that's part of a more of an American thing, that's fine. That's just a cultural difference. But him like holding on to it, Like if I was in Mocha Joe's position and I was an American and tipping was just, part of day-to-day life and transactions when you deal with people, I might be a bit miffed at the time and say, oh, well, why didn't he tip me? And go, oh, okay. But then I would let it go. But he obviously holds on to it and he stews on it. Because the next day, which we'll go a bit later when we get into the episode a bit more, he's even more upset. He's more pissed off. It's like he's stewed on it overnight and it's bugged him and he's even more pissed off about it. So, like, I think that's the unreasonable part, like the fact that he didn't let it go. Like, just be annoyed for 5 minutes and go, oh, well, Larry's a bit cheap. And then just get on with it because, it's $1 or something. It's not worth holding on to. But yeah, it seems to really bother him and he loses a lot of respect for Larry for sure.
Very much so, he does. And speaking of that scene, that's coming up right now. The next scene we see with Mocha Joe in it.
Perfect.
Larry tells Jeff about what Cheryl asked him as they are walking towards Julia's house, and Jeff reminds Larry that everything has come into fruition for him. And this is the reason why he did the reunion, to get with Cheryl, and everything is working out for Larry. Jeff says that he should make a move on Cheryl and reminds Larry, like I said, that his plan is coming into fruition. The scene cuts to Jerry looking at a copy of Jason's book as they mock the cover as well as how small the book is. Larry comments that it's more like a pamphlet, and it certainly is. I think I've read like guides and stuff which are bigger than that.
Yeah, it is a bit small.
Yeah, very small. Jerry comments on people saying the term having said that after each comment, and Larry agrees with it. Some people usually do that, Stephen, but having said that, there's a reason for it. What do you think of having said that?
Oh, I mean, it's occasionally useful, but, it's probably overused at some points, for sure.
But having said that...
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like, I think it's useful when you're making a statement or stating an opinion that you might not feel 100% confident in, or you might see another point of view about. Like you might say, I didn't really like that movie, but having said that, I can see why other people did, or having said that, I did like this actor in the movie that I didn't like. It's if you're saying something that isn't 100% confident and settled and you've got a bit of doubt, or you can see another point of view, I think it's totally fine to use that. But if you're sort of saying something confidently and then you're just contradicting yourself for no reason other than to just be, I don't know, like contrarian or something. I don't know. It's it is odd, but I think it's useful from time to time.
Yeah, it can be, yeah. But Jerry, it's part of his shtick, just commenting about the most mundane stuff. That's what he does best. And Larry goes along with it. He loves it.
What does he say? Like, a comedian gets on stage and says, "You're a really good audience. Having said that, I think you're all terrible." Like, it's just,
you're all a bunch of morons.
It's just it's very contradictory.
It can be, yeah. Just like Larry says, you say something and then you just say something else to negate it with having said that. Yeah, it's like you cancel out what you just said.
Yeah, if you're saying something confidently and you really believe what you're saying, you don't need to say having said that. But again, if you're saying something you're not entirely sure of, or maybe you've got a mixed opinion on, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally fine.
Having said that...
No, we're not doing that. Come on. Jerry says Mocha Joe was upset that Larry didn't give him a tip for returning the cables, as Jerry is defending Joe. Jason walks up to them, and Larry jokingly says that he will read the book with dinner, as in his little book. Jerry asks Jason about the book title. What is acting without acting? And then Jason goes on a big explanation of what it means. And Jerry, I love when Jerry's like, "So it's just acting then?" And then Jason's like, "Oh yeah, of sorts." It's just kind of like trying to justify it.
Yeah.
And then, and then they mention having said that a couple of times. Jason and Jerry are kind of rambling a little bit as Julia calls Larry over. I mentioned this last week. I love how Jerry kind of outside of work, outside of recording and in the studio and stuff, Jerry I think he respects Jason, in at least in the Kirby universe anyway. I like how Jerry kind of respects him as like an actor and stuff, but as a person, he thinks little of him. He's just like... he thinks he's just like some pompous theatre actor.
Yeah,
I think he calls him out on it. I love it.
Yeah, he thinks... I mean, we commented in, I think, last week's episode that...
Yeah, last week's. Yeah, we did. Yeah,
because he's theatre trained, he's probably got a bit more of a pompous kind of attitude towards acting. Whereas, Jerry, although has become an actor and he's pretty good at it, that's not his... that's not his trade. His trade is comedy. So, I think comedy is seen as a bit more like blue collar, or a bit more like less artsy fartsy and a bit more like just sort of straight to the point, as opposed to theatre acting. So there's probably that tension there because they come from different backgrounds. And, And Jerry, I think Jerry in Curb is made out to be a bit more of a prick. Like, he's not a total prick, but he's got a bit more of a snide part of his personality than he would real life, he seems like a really funny, lovely guy who wouldn't say a bad word about anyone unless, he's warranted. Whereas in Curb, he's a bit more, he's not like full Larry, he's not an asshole, but he's got more of that, he's got like a bit more of a Larry streak in him, where he's a bit more mocking and a bit more condescending. So, even to
but he does it kind of like in a polite way, in a very subtle way.
Oh, it's a very backhanded compliment. It's very like a subtle.
It is, yes.
He might even think he's just making like a mundane point, but like Jason is obviously taking it as a dig at what is something that is very important to him. And he, I don't think Jerry is like truly trying to be like a total, like he is being an asshole, but I don't think he's trying to be malicious. I just don't think.
No, not malicious.
I just think he's like, I don't get what's the point of this? Like acting is acting. Like why are you writing a book about acting without acting? Like you just, he cuts through the artsy-fartsy stuff and he's just like, well, it's all acting. Who cares?
And even at the end, Jason's a bit hesitant. He's kind of like, even he's questioning it a little bit. He's like,
yeah,
that's true, actually.
Yeah.
I love how Larry says, how long did it take you to write this? Oh, a year, a little over a year.
You're in change of my life,
yeah. Yeah. So good. And then it's like, look at each other like, oh, okay. Just to write like, a 50-page book, maybe 100 pages at the most. It's like, what is this?
Salutations.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, nice to see you.
You're really cutting the figure these days.
Well, thank you very much.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
This is really something.
Thank you very much.
How long did this take?
That's about a year and change in my life right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yet it's very concise.
Yeah, I tried to get it down to the essentials.
Yeah, I'll read it with dinner.
Julia asks Larry why he didn't use a coaster on her heirloom side table for his drink, as there is a ring stain on it. Larry says he always holds his glass in all situations so he doesn't have to socialise with anyone and like to go shake hands or whatever. I think that's a great idea. People come up to you, like, you're having a drink, you're sitting there, people will just be like, oh, hey, Larry, but they'll just like wave to you from a distance. They won't make the effort to like shake your hand usually. It's a good hack by Larry. If you don't want to talk to someone at a party, just hold your drink and sit down.
Hold your drink.
Might work. Yeah, just hold it. Because you don't have hands. Maybe like some food in one hand and drink in the other, and no one will touch you. You're untouchable.
Yeah, exactly. And you can even do the whole like, oh, I can't shake your hand because I've got food and drink. Like you can even make like a point of like, hey, I can't. I want to shake your hand, but I can't because I'm holding stuff.
Have some food in your mouth as well as a bonus, so you can't talk to them. You're like, oh. Yeah.
And then people go, well, bugger, this guy is not talking to me. I shake my hand, and they'll move on.
Yeah. Excellent. Larry would be very happy about that. Julia says that someone saw Larry put the drink on the table and Larry still denies it. Julie doesn't believe him as she walks off. Larry looks at Mocha Joe, who looks at Larry and stares at him. Larry goes up to question Joe about what happened. He explains his case as Joe asks Larry for a favour so that they're even. He asks Larry to go all the way to West Hollywood to get his coffee order and then they'll be even. Larry refuses to do it and he says that West Hollywood is literally in the opposite direction of where he lives. Larry offers to tip him money. Joe says that the favour stands. And Larry, I love when he says, okay, Mocha Joe, I'll go to West Hollywood and I'll get your beans. He just like says it so deadpan.
Yeah.
He just seems so defeated as well.
Yeah.
This is like, all right, Mocha Joe, I'll go to West Hollywood and I'll get your beans.
And get this stuff.
Yeah. He's walking back in the house and Susie and Cheryl are walking past and Cheryl reminds Larry about seeing her that night and he walks off and Susie looks at Cheryl like, ooh, as in like, oh, you two are getting close again, and Cheryl's like, no, it's just work, and Susie's like, oh yeah. She has an inkling that something may happen, so Susie's kind of happy in a way for Cheryl even though she can't stand Larry.
Yeah.
She wants to see Cheryl happy. That's the main thing. As long as Cheryl's happy, who gives a fuck what Larry's like?
Yeah.
That's Susie's MO, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Even if she has to get back with that miserable bastard, according to her, then, it's fine.
Yeah.
Larry is in traffic on the way to the coffee place and he calls Cheryl to say that he's late and he may be an hour. Cheryl says that it's totally fine and they can meet another time. Larry is very disappointed. And understandably so. I mean, Larry, that would have been an opportunity for Larry to really, get back with Cheryl and would have been a nice moment. There's those two alone, away from the studio environment and something would have happened, because we've seen the feelings between Cheryl and Larry are still there.
Yeah, there's still a bit of attraction there for sure.
Yeah. So I can understand Larry, in a way, got blue ball, sort of.
Yeah, he
because of this coffee.
Yeah, he I wouldn't say got blue balls because who knows what could have happened, but.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
There was a potential opportunity. I wouldn't say a certain opportunity, but a maybe was turned into a no. Or,
Yeah.
But through no fault of his own. He tried
No, of course.
to do the nice thing to square his favour with Mocha Joe, but Harry got the better of him. And I'm surprised Cheryl, she was so keen she invited him over. Like, maybe because it was so late, but like an hour late, it doesn't seem like I wouldn't be too bothered by, like, if I was in that situation and they called me and they're like, hey, I'm running late, I'm in traffic, I'm going to be an hour late, I'd be like, oh, that's disappointing, but yeah, sure, still come over. Like, if I was keen enough to invite them over and sort of, like, very subtly hint at, like, it could be more than just us reading the script, like, there's more to it, an hour wouldn't change my mind. But obviously maybe Cheryl reads it as, like, I'm giving Larry this opportunity to, like, capitalize on, like, this flirtation or whatever's going on between us, and he's not taking advantage of it. So maybe she sees it as more disrespectful than, just being an hour late. She sees Larry, like, not prioritizing it. Like, he should have gotten a coffee or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why Cheryl's like, you know what? Like, it's not even being late. It's just the fact that you're not, it's obviously not as important to you as it is to me.
I think, just going by what you said, I think it's the moment where Larry says he's gone to get coffee beans for Joe. Yeah. Because you can hear Cheryl say, you're getting beans for Joe? Like, what? And, like, I think she figured, like, Larry is still his same old Larry. We've seen in earlier episodes when they were together, like, Larry would justify what he's doing, and then Cheryl's like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? What is this stupid scheme you're up to, Larry? So I think she probably thinks this is one of Larry's stupid schemes. I don't want him coming over, because then he'll talk about it, he'll rant about it, he'll go on he'll talk about his unwritten rules of this, and he's like, I don't need this these Larryisms in my night. I want to focus on my work. I think that's what triggered Cheryl to say, oh, don't worry about coming over, we'll do it another night.
Yeah, true. It's just the juice ain't worth the squeeze.
No, it's not. And then she'll be like, oh, I'm just going to get old Larry again.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just the way I saw it. Yeah,
no.
That's what I think, because had Larry not mentioned beans, or he would have just said, look, I've just got to pick something up or whatever, Cheryl would have been like, oh, that's cool, that's fine, I'll see you in an hour. But I think the fact he went into his, like, Larry, like, his details, and he's just doing something random, like picking up coffee beans in West Hollywood for Joe at, like, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night? It's like, what?
Yeah, I guess.
Even Cheryl's like, what the fuck?
Even though she doesn't.
What are you doing?
Yeah, even though she doesn't know the specifics and she doesn't really ask, she knows it's like, there's like, it's just too. She just doesn't want to know. She's just like, it sounds too weird. Fuck it, it's not worth it. Yeah,
another Larry situation.
Yeah,
that she's seen so many times.
For sure, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just the way I saw it. But
no, I think that's pretty spot on.
The scene cuts to Larry arriving. However, the shop is closed as per the sign at the door. He knocks on the door and yells, but no answer. Larry obviously is very pissed, and he goes, Mocha Joe! He blames Mocha Joe for what happened. The next day at the studio, Jerry asks Jason how he's going with Cheryl, and he says that they're doing very well. He says that Cheryl invited him to her place to rehearse, much to the chagrin of Larry, who overhears as he's picking out clothes from the wardrobe department. Julia goes up to Larry at the apartment set, and she tells Larry that it will cost $500 to fix the table. Larry says he didn't do it, even though Julia doesn't believe him, and Julia says for Larry to cut the bullshit, and she's known him since 1984, and she knows when he's lying. He's got his tics, his triggers.
She kind of like emulates his mouth, like how his mouth forms when he's lying. And I think she says, he's not buying this particular line of bullshit, which I think is a great line. Just the way she says it is great.
Yeah. It's like, Larry, how long have I known you? Since 1983? And Larry's like, 1984.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, what, 84? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're like. Yeah. So she doesn't believe him.
Yeah, long enough to know that he's full of shit. Even though, he turns out that he's not full of shit. But
no, he's not.
Yeah, I mean,
and even Larry says to Julia, if I did it, I would have told you.
Yeah, but I guess
I would have said I did it.
I guess to be fair to Julia, like Larry, it's not like Larry lies. It's it's not like he's told like two lies in their entire relationship. Like he lies regularly, get out of stuff. So I can understand why Julia would be like, you know what, I'm just going to assume you're lying because most of the time you are anyway. Because
we have seen Julia a couple of times on Curb, in earlier seasons, and Larry kind of not really fucked over Julia, but kind of went against her in those situations. So Julia knows Larry, at least in the last 6, 7, 8 years, he's been a bit dodgy with some stuff.
Yeah,
And he hasn't been truthful.
perfectly reasonable for her to not trust him.
Yeah, for sure. Larry says that he has respect for wood, which I appreciate. I sent you a photo, Stephen, at my office. I was eating lunch and I was eating, I won't go into too much detail about the story, but I was eating out of like a glass container of my food, and I went to go wash the container, right? So what happened was it was still wet, and I put it on like a wooden table. I left it there for like 10 minutes. I came back to go pick it up. I went to go to get a coffee or something. Came back to get it, lifted it up, Steve, and it had a ring stain on it. I sent you that picture, remember? And then I wrote, I have no respect for wood.
No respect for wood.
No respect for wood. And it was like a good table too. Luckily, I think I could remove the stain, like with a bit of like effort. I could like get rid of it, but yeah, it was just... it was like a stain of like the bottom of the container, like the outline of the container. It's like, uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. I was like, oh shit. So yeah, no, I cleaned it up. Luckily, it was fine.
Sure.
I didn't have to pay $500 for a new table, which is good. It wasn't an heirloom one, which is good.
No, just a office furniture problem.
That's right. The scene rehearsal with Jason and Cheryl commences. The scene has a moment where they are close together, which frustrates Larry. Their chemistry seems to be great in the scene and they're getting along very well. Larry begins to get jealous. As the scene cuts, everyone's very impressed and Jason and Cheryl go for lunch. Mocha Joe goes up to Larry and asks if he got the beans, and Larry explains the story with the traffic and the store closing, etc., which upsets Joe. He claims that Larry didn't complete the favour. Jerry asks what's going on and they both explain their sides of the story. Jerry, of course, sides with Joe. Jerry's like, you have jumper cables. What does Joe have to show for it? Like a driving story. That you got nothing to show for it.
The favour didn't happen unless you've got like a tangible thing in your hand.
That's right. And it's like, and Larry's like, E for effort. Remember that. E for effort. Joe yells out F for favour and Jerry yells C for coffee. So Larry gets really upset and he says it was the effort that's considered a favour, but Jerry's on Joe's side again.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe his coffee's so good. He doesn't want to be in Joe's bad books.
Yeah, I think as well. He probably just wants to stick it to Larry a bit,
a little bit, yeah, that's true. Just stick it to him.
Yeah.
They have that relationship.
Yeah.
Larry tells Jeff that Jason and Cheryl were in his car eating lunch, and because of the tinted windows, he doesn't know what would have happened in there. Jeff says that it's nothing. They're probably just like eating burritos, in the car during the day. Oh, and by the way, this is at Jeff's house. Sorry, I forgot to mention. Larry spots a ring stain on one of Jeff's side tables in the lounge room. Larry suspects that Susie might have been the one to put a drink on Julia's table, as Larry accuses her of the act as Susie walks in. She says it wasn't her. Larry says that Susie has no respect for wood. And Susie says, I have respect for wood. I'd have so much respect for wood that if I had a piece of wood in my hand, I'd beat the shit out of you with it.
That was a good one.
Probably one of my favourite lines in the episode.
It's pretty good.
She just really goes nuts.
Yeah.
She tells Larry to get out of the house. Larry keeps looking for stains on other tables, and Susie's like, what? Are you looking for fucking stains? Are you kidding me? And she forces him out of the house, and she yells at Jeff to call... Who was it? Was it the sprinkler guy? No. What was it?
I think it is a sprinkler guy. Is it sprinkler
Something
guy?
like that, yeah. Might have been. I don't know. I forgot what kind of handyman it was. It was like, call the blah guy. And Jeff's like... Oh.
I think it is a sprinkler guy.
It might have been the sprinkler. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff, you can see Jeff at this point. Obviously, we have commented before that Jeff's only really in it for his daughter, really, and to kind of, have a family for his daughter. He's not really in it for Susie.
I was going to say, it's not a very happy marriage. There's
No.
a lot of tension. There doesn't seem to be a lot of peace or love or respect. It's very her yelling at him and him sort of like dismissing her or yelling back or just being... Yeah, it's a fairly dysfunctional relationship at this point.
It is. And even like you can see how deflated Jeff is because Susie turns to Jeff to mention something and then Jeff just basically sighs and he's like, I don't know anymore. He's like, I got no comment.
Yeah, he just seems defeated, doesn't he?
He's defeated, yeah. He's just like, I don't know anymore. Like, fucking...
Yeah.
He's just exhausted. He's just like, what do you want, Susie? Like, honestly, what do you want me to say? He's trying to say.
Yeah.
He's got nothing.
Jeff's obviously not a very good husband, but saying that...
Oh, no. Shit bloke.
Yeah. He, Jeff is not a very good husband, but having said that...
Here we go. All right, having said that, acting with that acting.
Clearly he's not the best wife either. She's, she's a good wife. She's just not a very nice person. I think she's a fine wife. She's she's a good mother. She cares about Jeff. She's loyal to him, even after all of his infidelity. She's still with him, but she's a a frustrating person.
Oh, very. Like, ball breaker to the extreme.
Good life, maybe.
I'm watching The Sopranos again. I've just finished the first 2 seasons.
Yep.
And it's like, you're breaking my balls. They always say that kind of stuff. It's like, yes, Susie's breaking balls over here.
I'm just breaking balls here. What's wrong?
Breaking balls over Susie's breaking balls over here. Reminds me of that. So yeah, she breaks Jeff's balls. Balls. Kind of reminds me of that.
Why you gotta break my balls for?
Larry arrives at the studio parking lot and Cheryl is also there. She says that Jason's guy got her windows tinted at a good price as Larry asks what happened to her car, like why she has tint, and also what happened the other night, why Larry couldn't come over. Cheryl says that Larry was being weird. So there you go. So that explains it. Obviously, Cheryl knew that Larry was getting up to one of his shenanigans, his unique shenanigans that only he gets involved with, and she didn't want a piece of it. She remembers from the past. She's like, I don't want to be involved in this. I've seen Larry do this like 1,000 times. I don't want to be part of it. As she walks off. He yells at Mocha Joe, who's at a nearby coffee cart, that it's all his fault. And Joe's like, what's my fault, Larry? You owe me a favor. He yells to Larry. You still owe me a favor. Love him. Cheryl and Jason are doing their scene, and Larry gets to the point where he directs Jason to go into Jerry's bathroom to do the scene. Jerry's very confused. Larry claims that it'll be funny when Jason yells from the toilet, and Cheryl and Jason are very confused. Jerry calls a 5. He speaks to Larry and disagrees with the idea. Jerry grabs Larry privately. He asks what's wrong with him. And he asks Larry to tell him what's wrong, as they've always talked about personal stuff while working on the show. Larry says he's fine. Jerry says, are you sure? And Larry says, no, everything's okay. Jerry's like, you're absolutely sure. And Larry's like, yeah, I'm good. Jerry gives him the stare down with the music in the background. He gives him the stare down. And then Larry's like, all right. I love how he goes to like stop the stare down, and then he like goes back in Larry's face to give him like one more, like affirmation with the stare. Just like one last one.
Yep.
He just like kind of goes right in front of Larry. Just to like see if he's like flinched, and Larry's just does nothing, and Jerry's like, all right. And he walks off. Jerry invites Larry to lunch to the Thai restaurant, but Larry can't go. He says he can't go. He has to go somewhere else. He looks for Cheryl and Jason, and one of the crew says that they went to lunch together. Larry is in the parking lot and he spots Jason's car swaying side to side. Larry thinks that Jason and Cheryl are probably having sex in the car. He opens the door and Jason's dogs run out and chase Mocha Joe. Because obviously, like we mentioned, the windows are tinted. So, Larry had no idea what was going on. So it's just the dogs moving around the car. 2 big dogs, actually, moving around the car. So he thought there was a bit of funny business between Jason and Cheryl. And poor Mocha Joe gets attacked. And then Larry runs after him.
Yeah, he cops it.
Oh, he sure does. In Jerry's office, Jerry says to Larry that they will destroy Jason's dogs as they bit Mocha Joe. Jerry says that Larry can't let the dogs die, as Jason won't do the show well. If it happens, he'll be very distraught, understandably. Larry spots a ring stain on Jerry's desk, and Larry says that the desk is made from low-grade wood, and he doesn't care about the stain. Larry says that he respects all wood. Jerry says that he respects wood, but he doesn't respect dogs. I love when Jerry says, so if you go to, you don't respect living beings, but you respect wood. So if you go to a funeral, you don't respect the dead person, you respect the coffin.
Yeah, you respect
yeah, the wood, like the wood.
Yeah.
And, And then Larry asks if Jerry left the stain, and Larry's like, oh no, he knows that Julie would destroy him, tear shreds off him. He's like, oh no, I'd never do that. No.
Yeah.
And then Jerry says Larry has to sort out the dogs as he walks off. Larry goes up to Mocha Joe in his coffee cart outside, and he apologises. Joe has some lacerations to his face and a bandage across his forehead. Joe says that he's happy that the dogs will be put down. He said if he had his chance, he'd have a crowd there and he'd have it all televised. He's really bloodthirsty. He's very vengeful, Joe, isn't he?
Yeah, he did get attacked. Fair enough. He wants what he sees as justice, but yeah, he seems to hold on to stuff. It seems to be a trait of his. He wants to settle a score.
Yeah, that's it. Settle a score. He just holds grudges.
Yeah.
And especially with Larry as well.
Yeah, he's a strong grip. I don't know. Maybe something happened between them, in the past. Maybe Larry snubbed him, in the past, and he's just got this extra level of distaste for Larry, but he seems to really, just be really against Larry and everything he does and says.
Yeah, I just think it really shows Joe's vindictive side as well. Yeah. Like, I think with Joe, I think he understands levels. Like, even though it's quite, sick in the head, Joe, in parts, I feel like Joe, understands the levels. Like, for example, Larry didn't do him a favour, so his way of justice is Larry does him a favour in return. Whereas, Jason's dogs bit him, so his way of justice is that the dog should be put down. He's always almost he's got to be equal, He thinks that he equates killing two creatures as the equivalent of, him getting bitten by one of them, very, very distorted view of justice.
Yeah.
But I think because Larry hasn't really caused him any physical or mental harm, so to speak, Joe doesn't really wish physical harm on Larry as such. He just kind of says to him, look, just do me this favour and then we're good, But yeah, no, he's very, very vindictive. No remorse for the dogs, the animals, they were being what the animals are. No, none of that. He's he says, literally, if he had control, he'd have a whole big crowd, he'd have it in a stadium, and he'd televise the execution. Yeah. It's oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
What a nut.
Yeah. Yeah, he's easily upset and he holds onto it.
That's right. Larry asks him if Joe can do him a solid. And Joe says, there's another word for solid, isn't it? And then Larry's like, did you say favour? Says Joe. Did you say favour? And Larry tips Mocha Joe some money. Some money, first of all, he puts in the tip jar. And Joe says, that's for the jumper cable. Larry puts a bit more money in. And he says, that's for not getting the beans. Okay, that's your payback. And he puts some more money in. And then Joe says, one dog lives. And Larry says, you can't do that. So he throws more money in. And he says, both dogs live. Deal? And then Joe says, fine. Stay of execution. As Larry walks off. So Joe promises not to have the dogs put down because he made a bit of bank from Larry, which is what Joe should have accepted the whole time. He should have just accepted money and been done with it. But no, he had to be a bit vindictive little bugger, didn't he? It'll be very interesting because this is the last time we do see Joe this episode and then this season, and we see him 3 seasons later. So when we do get to season 10, we'll see him more often. And he's got his own cafe this time, not his little coffee cart. So he seems to have done well for himself. So yeah. We'll see how their interactions go then. Yep. What situations that they're in. Mm-hmm. Larry notices Jason's assistant picking up Jason and Cheryl's coffee order. He spots him walking towards Cheryl's dressing room. Jason answers the door and grabs the coffees. Larry knocks moments later, and Cheryl answers the door and yells at Jason to come back. Jason jumps out of the back window and he runs off, and Larry yells at him. He turns to Cheryl and asks what's going on between them. She says that Jason is a very sensitive and slightly neurotic person who's very into the work. Larry says, that's not Jason, that's George. I wrote that. That's based on me. He exclaims that Cheryl isn't attracted to Jason, she's attracted to Larry. The neuroticism that is Larry.
Yeah.
Back at the Jerry apartment set, the cast are sitting down and they notice that the script is much smaller and completely different. Larry walks in. Jerry asks what's going on. Larry says he changed the script. Jason gets very upset because there's no scenes with him and Cheryl in them. He leaves the set saying that he's quit the production. Michael goes after him to console him. Larry offers to play George and to try one scene as George is based on him and he wrote the character based on him. Julia and Jerry look at each other and the scene cuts and they're doing the scene and Larry walks in playing George and he's terrible. What can I say?
Yeah, no,
he's like chewing scenery. Yeah, he's just no chemistry between him, Jerry and Julia in that scene. Jerry and Julia just don't give him anything because they know it's no good. He can't replace Jason. Even Jerry makes a point before that happens. Jerry says, look at this set. This is an iconic set. And he points at Julia. Icon. Jason's an icon. Michael's an icon. Points to Julia, icon, and points to himself, icon, and he points to Larry, no-con. Calls him a no-con.
Yeah, it's a good dig.
Yeah, he's making the point, basically, we mentioned last week as well, you can't do a Seinfeld reunion without any of the core. If any of them are dead or quit or whatever, you can't do it. It's off the table. You can't replace them. Impossible. You can't. So I think Larry saw it as one last chance to be with Cheryl, and he's I'm just going to throw the Hail Mary and see what happens. And
I don't think
unfortunately it doesn't work. It doesn't work out.
I don't think he cares about Seinfeld. He just cares about being with Cheryl.
At that point, yeah. That's why I feel he probably knows he's not going to get accepted, but he's fuck it, I'm just going to give it one go, see what happens.
Hey, George.
Are you happy?
What?
What? I want to know if you're happy.
Yeah, I'm reasonably happy.
You had to interfere, didn't you?
George, what are you talking about?
Kramer and I were all set to do this fake mugging, and you had to put all these ideas in his head that he was doing something wrong.
George, wouldn't it be easier just to talk to Amanda?
No. 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 Ho ho! George is getting upset.
Obviously, it doesn't work out because in the next scene, Larry leaves the studio and he's on the phone, I assume to Jeff, saying that he quit. And he said that the crew didn't like his performance. He adds that Jason is returning to the production after walking off. And Larry says he has no chance of getting Cheryl anymore. And he seems very upset. He walks past Cheryl's car. It's implied that Cheryl may have overheard what Larry was saying that while she was in there because the car's tinted. We don't see her, but we see the camera kind of pan into the car. And I guess it's implied that Cheryl was in the car. So she might have overheard, she realized finally why Larry was doing this, putting his, going back to Seinfeld, doing all this big production. It wasn't for his, for something to do or for his vanity or anything like that. No, it was for, to get back his ex-wife. And I think she probably felt really, really enamored by it.
Yeah, I think she was very, I would say blown away. I mean,
I think so too.
It's a big, like it's such a big operation just to get back with your ex-wife. And it's not just, it affects so many lives. So, yeah, I think she's touched by the mountains he's trying to move just to get a chance of getting back with her. I guess it shows that, even though he is like thoughtless and a pretty terrible husband, he can be everything that she thinks he can be. Like he can be loving and caring and putting her first.
Oh, he can, yeah, he can. And like I said, I think it's implied, like we don't see Cheryl in the car, obviously, because of the tint, but I think it's implied that she was sitting there, yeah?
Yeah.
That she heard it? That's what you thought as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it would be weird if they make a point about the tinted windows all throughout the episode and like how much you can't see through them and like why they're useful, and then they linger on the tinted windows. It's, I think it's fair to assume that, yeah, she was in the car.
Yeah, and she overheard everything, yeah. Larry is watching the reunion on TV and he is enjoying it. And I must say, Stephen, the scenes are really well done. It actually looks like an actual Seinfeld episode that's set in 2009. Yep. It's fucking awesome. It's like really, it's like funny too. Like, yeah, it's just really well done. Really well done. Considering they were like scenes shot for Curb. It was great.
Yeah.
He's shocked when he notices that Virginia is playing the part of Amanda. She's recovered from her neck injury by the sounds of it, and Cheryl isn't there at all. Larry answers the door to Cheryl, who has a couple of Mocha Joe coffees. She said that she had an argument with Jason because she said that his book was more of a pamphlet than a book, and apparently got very upset. And that the production wasn't the same after Larry had left. They're sitting down, drinking their coffees, enjoying the rest of the reunion. The remaining scenes play out. The show ends. Cheryl and Larry look at each other saying that the episode was quite good. Cheryl tells him how she feels about Larry and, having, things that sometimes things you don't have, sometimes you kind of yearn for them and you want them back. To paraphrase what was said on the show and how Cheryl thinks. Cheryl tells him how she feels and they kiss. And you think, like, by this stage, Larry and Cheryl are together. They're like, oh my God, it's all happening. Larry notices a stain on his coffee table and Cheryl picks up her drink and apologizes. And Larry claims that Cheryl was the one who left the stain on Julia's table and asks her if she respects wood. And Cheryl's like, that's not something I've ever thought about before. I guess I do.
Yeah.
And that ruins it because he insists that Cheryl called Julia explaining the situation as they argue about it, and he goes on the phone and Julia just answered the phone because you can hear Larry say, hey, Jules, it's me. Mm-hmm. So like the call's connected and then the scene ends and the episode ends and season 7 ends and the theme music plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good ending.
There you go. Yeah, good ending because you think like Cheryl and Larry will finally get back together, but and it's close. But then Larry notices the stain, and that's it. It's all over.
Yep.
Back to square one, unfortunately, for old mate.
Yeah, you think things are going to be different, but as usual, that lasts about 8 seconds, and then Larry's back to his compulsive nitpicking and obsessive neuroticism and just making big deals over nothing.
Pretty much, yeah, that's him. Anyway, that was Seinfeld. That was the final episode of Season 7. That was episode 10. Stephen, I thought it was a very good send-off to Season 7. 4 out of 5. What about you?
Yeah, I gave it 3.5. I thought it was pretty good. Not as strong as the season finales for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Not a bad episode. I did like the conclusion of the Cheryl and Larry storyline. I like that last scene. I thought it was good. This huge build up and Larry going to this massive effort and moving all of these things in his life to just to get back with Cheryl. And, when it comes down to it, they're sort of back together in the last scene, and it's just back to the way it was. There's been no growth, no progress. I always enjoy that about Curb, that like no matter what, what character growth is shown or like how much things change, it always just comes back to Larry's a neurotic prick and he only cares about himself. Like that's what it always comes back to, which is, why we watch the show. I thought the Seinfeld aspect of this episode was the weakest part. I did like, the shots on set, like it was fun to see. I thought the table reading aspect of the whole, like, the actual reunion of Seinfeld was way stronger than the filming, like the rehearsal in this episode, and then the bit of footage you see at the end of the episode after it's produced and aired. I don't know, I just think they could have done a bit more with the actual content of Seinfeld. It just felt a bit lacking, but not terrible, just not as, like the table read last week and all of the stuff centered around, the Seinfeld set, and with, Michael Richards being mistakenly sort of filmed as being a racist again. And I don't know, I just thought that Seinfeld specific content was much stronger than this episode.
Yeah. I kind of get what you mean. You wanted to see a bit more like last week, where you really like the focus was mainly on the characters and the crew of Seinfeld, right? Whereas this one was kind of like wrapping up Larry's story arc over the season and introducing his nemesis as well.
Of course,
Mocha Joe. Right at the end there, yeah. Now, fair enough. No, understandable. Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. Yeah, I wanted to see a bit more Seinfeld, but I do have respect for the actual scenes at the end of the episode. Like, it looked like what I would imagine a reunion if it was released in 2009, what it would look like, and it was very well done.
Yeah,
I appreciate it a lot.
Totally.
Very with the laugh track and everything. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess we might as well wrap up, give our takes on season 7. So what did you think of this season overall? I think it was pretty solid overall. My favourite episode, which felt like we did a lifetime ago, The Black Swan was my favourite episode. I gave that one 5 Larrys. 3 episodes I gave 4.5. Last week's The Table Read, Denise Handicap, and Vehicular Fellatio, the episode where Loretta breaks up with Larry. Yeah, I thought they were all fantastic episodes. I feel like season 7 overall isn't as strong as season 6. I've said many times that season 6 is probably the strongest season of Curb. 7 still had some really good ones, obviously, like the ones I mentioned. A few ones that were a bit average, like not really memorable. The thing that struck me the most was the whole, like, they condensed pretty much most of the Seinfeld, like, journey to, like, the episode. They kind of condensed it into, like, 2.5 episodes.
Yeah.
Like right at the end there. It's kind of like the whole other thing was just like talking. It was like storyboarding with Jerry, and then a few situations played out in those periods. I don't know. And then there were like episodes where Seinfeld wasn't even mentioned, or it might have been mentioned in like one sentence over lunch or something. Yeah. But it was like never touched upon. Like, because I found with a couple of seasons earlier, the arc would kind of be consistent in every episode. Like you'd really like, they'd really talk about it or really reference it quite a lot. But I found in this one, it was kind of like, oh yeah, we're doing a Seinfeld reunion, like after episode 3, Larry came up with it, and then and they're kind of like, there's like, I recall like a couple of episodes, like 2 or 3 of them, no mention of Seinfeld, no mention of the process to do the reunion, nothing. It was just really odd. Like the episodes with Seinfeld absent, you could have easily put in any season, and it wouldn't have made a difference.
I get exactly what you mean. I think we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. My theory is that maybe they wanted to dial back the Seinfeld a tiny bit as the main storyline throughout the season. Obviously, at the last 2 episodes, it's the thrust of the 2 episodes. Because, Seinfeld is such a gargantuan franchise, and it has such a monumentally and such influential legacy. And it's just, it's untouchable sort of thing. If it was constantly in the season, it would kind of take away from it being Curb. Like, it was the main storyline throughout the season, but I think if there was too much Seinfeld footage, it would be less Kirby and more Seinfeldy, if that makes sense.
Oh, and Curb would look like a Seinfeld spin-off of sorts, because Seinfeld would like overshadow it, right? Whereas Curb is like its own thing, its own entity.
Yeah, and I guess that could be completely off. Maybe they just, maybe it was just due to the availability of the staff. Like maybe they didn't.
Oh, you mentioned that, yeah. I remember you said that once. Yeah,
they didn't want to do a whole lot. Maybe they just wanted to be a bit like more like understated or low key about it. Who knows? But I think if it was just really like, I think if every episode had like a major part of Seinfeld throughout it, the season would feel less like, this is Curb Your Enthusiasm with a Seinfeld storyline. It would feel more like this season is a vehicle or a vessel for a Seinfeld reunion. This is
right.
This is this is just merely how we're presenting a Seinfeld reunion. It would feel less Kirby, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it would kind of be like, because Jerry does mention in the episode that they ruined one finale, they don't want to ruin another one, you know.
Yeah.
I think, people would probably think, you're right, I get what you mean. Curb would be seen as like, the vessel to give the long-suffering Seinfeld fans who've probably been begging up until this point for a reunion episode or season of some sort.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of like giving Seinfeld fans fan service rather than showing Curb as like its own entity.
Yeah, and I think up until this season, you know, like at least maybe once or twice a season, there's a Seinfeld reference, or you know, an actor pops up, or like a fan will talk to Larry and say, "Oh, I like Seinfeld." Like it's always threaded into show because you know it's a fictionalized version of Larry's real career and real life. So it's not something you can ignore, or you have to put it in there because it's like that's what made Larry Larry. But you know, it's always like, regardless of how much Seinfeld's shadow is lingering over Curb, it's still its own show. You know, it's still focused on Larry David, him as a person, and how he treats other people, and how he moves through the world, and how much of a prick he is. And you know, Seinfeld is just like a very small part of his like. Part of the storyline, because that's what made him famous, made him rich, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think if they just went full Seinfeld in this season, it would feel like a complete 180 to that. It would feel, it wouldn't need enthusiasm with a sort of a Seinfeld storyline. It would just feel like, we're merely presenting a Seinfeld reunion via Curb, and it would kind of like
understand. Yeah, no, for sure. So in a way, I guess they did the right thing by subtly referencing it in most episodes, and then leaving it all to like the last two episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
The meat of it. Yeah. Fair enough. No, but overall, an enjoyable season. I liked it.
Yeah, look, I didn't think it was a bad season, but I think I pretty much can't, like your summary of the season, can't disagree with. I think the episodes that you rated highly, I did too. I think my favorite episode of the season was probably Vehicular Fellatio or Black Swan. I really liked last week's episode too as well. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 too. The table read, and it just felt it was good. I just don't think it was great.
No, I agree. But anyway, overall, it's still a very enjoyable season. One of the better ones, I should say. Well, actually, I kid. Probably not like a top 3 season of Curb, but it was good. It was good nonetheless, and we're looking forward to bringing you season 8 next year in 2023.
Yeah, for sure. No, it'll be good to get back to a more regular publishing of the podcast. We'll have we're having the rest of the year off, and we'll be back on January 13th for season 8, and we'll have a few episodes recorded, so we can punch them out, and it won't be so disrupted by our lives.
For sure. And I just want to say big thank you for listening to us, for tuning in for season 7 or earlier episodes as well. Thank you for those who've reached out to us, through socials, through email, just to say how much you like the show, or reaching out to us, see how we're doing. Because, there were periods during this season where, it took like a couple of weeks to, bring out a new episode. So we do apologize for the inconsistency. But unfortunately, Steve and I, we had a few planned and unplanned issues in the last few months, which prevented us from wrapping season 7 much earlier than we expected. But like Stephen said, we are recording this in early December 2022. We're taking a few weeks off, and January 13, 2023, we will start season 8 of Curbcast. So we'll have a few weeks off. We'll keep in touch on socials, Curbcast Pod, if you want to, say hello, curbcastpod@gmail.com if you want to also shoot us an email as well. Yeah, you can find us on pretty much any podcast service, Apple, Spotify. Tell your friends and family about us. Give us a 5-star review if you think we're worthy of it. And you can also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/mishmash media. $1 a month gets you early access to episodes, and you're supporting our fledgling network. And that's all I really have to say, Steve. Anything you have to add?
No, thank you again for listening and putting up with the less consistent release schedule this season. And we look forward to getting back to a bit more of a solid schedule next year.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. My name's Ivan.
And my name's Stephen.
And we'll catch you on the 13th of January 2023 as we bring you episode 1 of season 8 of Curbcast. We cannot wait. You have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. And have a safe and festive holiday season. You take care of yourselves and each other. Catch you in 2023. Bye.
Bye. Happy Festivus.
Of course, Festivus. How can I forget? But having said that, Festivus is a pretty good season.
It is. Have a good one.
You too. Bye. Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media at Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.